let's just say when we click on this for now, let's do bar.animate to fill. Let's just go to half. Let's just see if this works. This is the left orange button here. Click. Oh, it didn't work. Let's try it again. There we go. Welcome back to Arcade. I am Super Tommy, and in this video, we're going to look at creating an animated health bar in Phaser 3 with TypeScript. So you see we have this demo project here with this pet, like a virtual pet. That's the scenario we have in this example. And we're going to play with it, which will cost 10 energy, which is the health here. We're calling it health, maybe it should be energy instead. But it's going to be minus 10 health, let's say, or energy. And then when you feed it, you get 5 energy or health back. Maybe I'll change this to energy, actually. So this is based on a blog post at blogs.arcade.co, the arcade blog. They create an animated health bar in Phaser 3, and this example uses modern JavaScript. But we're going to take the same concepts and apply it to TypeScript and go into slightly more advanced coding principles and practices. So you can check out this blog article for the version in modern JavaScript. We're going to use the same assets for the health bar that is in Kenny's UI space pack, or the UI pack space expansion. We're going to use these 3 segments. So we're going to take 3 segments and make a health bar out of it. And then for this example specifically, we're using this pixel fuzzy pet you can find on itch.io by Minu 1994. We'll link this in the description below. And now, so if you're looking for more on Phaser 3 and TypeScript, we have a new examples.arcade.co. So that is at examples.arcade.co. You can find the Phaser 3 examples that we are working on in progress right now. So we do have a bunch of them already. So for example, let's look at camera. We have 70 camera examples. These are the same ones from phaser.io, except these are in TypeScript. So let's look at this 16 camera shader test, for example. So there's code here, and then you can run it. So if we go to preview, you'll see it running. And then in the code, the nice thing here is there's also other files. In the code, you can make some adjustments. So you can actually change the code here, and then it will it'll affect it in the preview. So for example, we're going to spin it backwards, let's say, and then we go to preview. Now they're spinning the other way, right? Just so that you can remember. Plus, preview, now it's spinning to the right. So you can go here. There is a bunch of examples. We're going to be adding more all the time if you want to see more about Phaser 3 and TypeScript. All right, so back to this video. I'm making an animated health bar or any sort of meter bar in the top UI in Phaser 3 with TypeScript. So in the code here, we have a basic setup. We have some animations for this idle pet character that we have. So there's really nothing too special. One thing I want to call your attention to is this iPet controller that we are implementing. So this is an interface that our home scene, which is this scene with the pet here, implements. And iPet controller does 3 things. It lets you can get energy, so it'll return to you the energy that this pet has. You can feed it and you can play with it. So those are the 3 things that this does. Gets the current energy, you can feed the pet, and you can play with the pet. So this interface can be implemented in any class. We're going to do it in the scene class for simplicity. But you can also make a new class, a new plain JavaScript class, and then implement this interface, and then define it, and then implement those methods. So here's get energy, which just returns the current pet energy that we've stored in this scene. And then in feed, we simply add energy, and if it's more than 100, we cap it to 100. Play we'll just reduce energy, and it'll also do a little animation here to make them jump, which you'll see. And we have a thing here where if the energy goes down below certain levels, we're going to change the color of this sprite. That's because this particular asset has 3 different colors, so we're just going to use them that way. Okay, so that is an interface, and that is used a lot in TypeScript. An interface simply lets you not care about the concrete implementation of a class and only care about what specific properties or methods that it has. That's why you can use any other plain JavaScript class. As long as it implements these three methods here, it can be considered an iPet controller, which we're going to use when we launch the UI scene here. So we have this button, these two buttons, and this health bar in a UI scene, as you see here on line 55 here. We are launching a UI scene, and we're passing in this controller, which is this. So the controller is going to be expected to be a iPet controller. So you can see with interfaces set up this way, if you ever decided, let's organize the code some more, and we're going to move this code into a separate class, you wouldn't have to change your typing anywhere else. You just pass in whatever the new class is or instance that implements iPet controller, and everything will just work. So it makes your code more flexible and more reusable. Okay, so that's the interface. And now let's look at this UI scene. The scene is also very simple. We're going to do most of our coding in here. So we set up this bar background, which is this right here under this health. Let's change that. Let's make this say energy. Energy. And so this is just like the background of the bar so that we can see that this is the 100% fill of the bar, what that would look like. So when that green part goes up and down, you'll see relative to where it is, you can estimate how much the bar is filled. And so we just do this create bar background, which is very simply creating three different images and positioning them next to each other. And then we have these two buttons here, very simple rectangles that are set to interactive, and then they respond to clicks. So when we click on them, they do nothing right now. We have this to do here, play with pet and feed pet. But the first thing we're going to do is create the health bar. So because we're using TypeScript and this video is going to be slightly more advanced, we are going to create a health bar, but not in the traditional way and not in the way that this specific blog article suggests. We are going to do it by creating a controller class of sorts, and we're going to give the controller class the left cap, that's the left side, so like the left side, and then the middle, that's the part that's going to grow and shrink depending on how much fill this bar has, and then a right cap. So that just goes into these three segments that make up this asset. Of course, if you don't have left cap and right cap, you can just do the middle. So let's start. We're going to make a new health bar class, healthbar.ts. So export default class health bar. Now you'll also notice we are not going to extend from any phaser game object. This is going to be a plain JavaScript class. And then in the constructor, we're going to take an X, a Y, and a width. So this is just so that we can position the bar. So it needs a place to be, and it needs a size. Okay, so now we're going to make three private variables to hold each of these values that we need. Okay, so this dot x, x, this dot y, y, this dot width, width. Okay. Now we want to take in the pieces that make up this bar. So we could do it a few ways, but you may have seen some libraries on the internet that had like this nice syntax or usage, or when you use it, they're the method calls that you can use. You can chain them together. Phaser does this as well. So let's show you how you can actually do that. So we're going to do with left cap. And this is going to be a phaser dot gameobjects.image. And so what we're going to do with this is we're going to do new health bar dot with left cap. We're going to pass in something, and then dot with middle, and then dot with right cap. So to do that, we have to return this. That's how we can chain it. Let's just set up our with left cap, with right cap, with middle methods here. So with middle, we also want to return this. And then with right cap, same thing, we want to return this. So now we're going to be given, this is not cap, we're going to be given three different things here, and we're going to also want to store them. So let's say left cap, and it could be nothing. since it's not in the constructor. So if for some reason you never call this, or you forget to call these three methods, you won't get it. .gameObjects.image, private middle, phasor.gameObjects.image, private right cap. So that's what this question mark is in TypeScript. It's just saying that it could be undefined, or it's going to be phasor.gameObjects.image. And then here, this dot left cap, this dot middle, this dot right cap, right. Oh no, cap. Okay. So now let's just see this working so that we can get a better sense of this. So let's up here import health bar from health bar. So here, const bar new health bar, right? This is all very normal. And then x, y, there's nothing particularly special that we're doing right now. And then width is going to be full width. You've seen this before. So now we're going to do width left cap, and then we're going to give it an image. So we're going to do this dot add dot image like we've done before. And I believe it's called left cap, but let's actually check. We're preloading it here. Yep, left cap, middle, and right cap, and these are the green bar pieces. And actually we need XY first, right? So Phasor's image factory is XY and then a texture key. So cool. So with left cap with middle, this dot add dot image, same thing, middle dot with right cap, this dot add dot image, x, nope, 0, 0, right cap. All right, so cool. So you see here that we can do this nice chaining syntax here for our health bar. And you see it did create it at 0, 0. So next, let's make another thing. We're going to call this one layout. So what layout's going to do is actually lay out the bar so that it is lay them out so that the left piece is left, the middle piece is the middle, and the right piece is on the right, sort of like this background bar we have. So let's do that by first checking if not. So if we don't have a left cap, or we don't have a middle, or we don't have a right cap, we're going to do nothing. We're going to return this. We can chain layout as well. You can also throw an error here. For some reason, you're missing one of the key pieces needed, or you can actually construct your logic in a more complicated way to work, even if these pieces are missing. Now, I'll leave that one to you. For this example, we're just going to keep it simple, and if we don't have all three pieces, we're going to do nothing. Okay, so the left cap, x is just going to be this dot x, and then this dot left cap dot y is going to be this dot y. Now, I did forget something. So what we want to do for each one of these pieces is actually set their origin or anchor point to be 0 and half. So we would do this, 0, 0.5. So that would mean, let's just say we take this button here, this orange button. So origin normally is 0.5, 0.5, which is right in the middle where my mouse is. If we make it 0, 0.5, that means x is 0 over here, and y is 0.5, so the middle. So basically, we're anchoring everything to this point just to make the math easier to do. Because xy here is going to be, let's say, I think it was like 1248 or something, so it'll be like over here. And then you can just add the numbers for each piece so that it's very easy to reason about it and understand in your mind, and it'll look correct. So we'll just do that. And then we'll do the same thing for right cap. So that means left cap is going to go right here, flush against this side of this background bar. And then this dot middle dot x is going to be this dot left cap. So we're going to anchor it to the left cap x position, which is here. And then we're going to add the left cap's width, which means it's going to be however big the left cap is, the middle is going to start right at the right edge of it. Let's dot x. And then this dot middle dot y. So this dot left cap dot y, because we're laying things out horizontally, it doesn't matter. We don't have to do anything else for this y. And now this dot right cap dot x is going to be this dot middle, because we want it to be on the far right side of middle where this right cap starts. So middle dot x, just like the left cap, plus this dot middle dot. This time I'm going to use display height instead of display width instead of just width, since we're going to be changing the size of this middle segment as the bar shrinks or grows. This dot right cap dot y equals this dot middle dot y. So display height is the display width is the width with scale taken into account. So we're going to be scaling the middle to do this fill. Okay, so that's let's go back here, go to UI scene. So now we can do dot layout, and we should see that this bar is now laid out. Okay, now we see that it's laid out as the size of the original asset, which is very small. So we can use that width that we passed in, this full width, which is 300. What we can do is this dot middle dot display width, like we just mentioned, and we're going to want this dot width. Okay, see, there we go. So now it is filled. Cool. So now we want it to grow and shrink. Now, just to reiterate here, we only have references to these phaser game objects, but we haven't added them to any sort of container or anything like that. This class is a plain JavaScript class, doesn't extend from any phaser classes, so it's very light. It doesn't come with any other things that you may not need. It is a controller class by most definitions. All right, next, we're gonna do this, return this, yeah. And let's make this method called animate to fill, and fill is going to be a percentage from, so 0 to 1. 0 is nothing, 1 is 100% filled. And so animate to fill, we're going to use a tween here to basically animate the middle, depending on the percentage, and then we're going to move the right side with it as it goes. All right, so key thing here is if there is no middle, this is not going to work. So let's just check here for no middle, and then we don't do anything. So now we want an actual, so we have this fill here, this is the percentage. We want to make sure that the fill number is within 0 and 1. So we could do like if fill is less than 0, fill equals 0, else if fill is greater than 1, fill equals 1. But there is another way to do this, and you can use math.min and math.max together to do it. I'm not sure that's any better, but I'll just show it to you anyway. So first of all, let's consider someone passes in or you pass in 2 for fill. So what you're actually going to want is math.min. You want maximum 1, or you want the min, either 1 or fill. So fill is 2, min is going to be 1. So if you pass in 3, 1.1, whatever it is, ends up being 1. So now let's say you pass in -1. Now in this case, it'll take -1. So we don't want that. We want it to take 0 if it's -1. So now we do math.max 0. What are the value of math.min is? So now it'll be guaranteed that the whatever value coming in is going to be clamped to 0 and 1. Now Phaser has a clamp helper method as well. You can look that up in the Phaser docs, but it basically does this, I'm pretty sure. Okay, now with this percentage, let's do a tween. So the only way we can do a tween is we need access to the scene, which we don't currently have. So let's pass that into the constructor. First thing here, scene, phaser.scene. And we're going to want to store the scene. So phaser.scene. And then this .scene, scene. Now let's go back to UI scene. There's an error here. We just pass in this because this is the scene. Good. This should fix itself. Okay. So now we want to do a tween. So this .scene .tweens create. So target is going to be this dot middle, and then the display width is what we want to change. And we want to change that to this dot width times %. And let's see here. Duration, we'll just pass that in and expose that to whoever's calling this, but we're going to default it to 1000 milliseconds or 1 second. So duration, we'll give it an ease, phaser.math.easing.sign, we'll just do out. You can play with various different easings. And then on update, what we're going to do is effectively re-layout, right? So we want to basically, if the middle has changed, adjust things position. So we could duplicate this code. Really, we only need these two and like only the X value specifically, maybe just this one. But we can also reuse code here by doing this. So let's go private, we call it layout segments. And what we're going to do is basically this. Although I guess, how about this? Because our layout method is actually, it doesn't do much of anything. It only does the layout. Oh, right, there's this. Okay, let's revert that. Okay, so, okay, display width. Okay, so what we're going to do here is we set this, and then we can do this dot layout segments. Right, so now we're sharing the bulk of this layout code. And in here, we can do if this dot middle, set the width. So our layout here always assumes we're going to lay out to 100%. So if there is a middle, we're going to set display width to width, and then we're going to call layout segments, which will do the actual layout work that we had before. That means we can also go into onUpdate here and do this layout segments, and ta-da! Now we've the same logic for positioning the segments in one place, and we're using it twice. All right, so next let's try this out. So animate to fill. So that's the health bar. Let's go back to our UI scene here. We created our health bar, laid out. That looks good. So play. Well, let's just say when we click on this for now, let's do bar.animate to fill. Let's just go to half. Let's just see if this works. This is the left orange button here. Click. Oh, it didn't work. Animate to fill. There's no error. Set interactive. Okay, let's see what we may have missed here. If not middle, return. If middle, that. If not left, or not middle, or not right, clip. The width times percent 0.5. Okay, let's look into the debugger here. Let's put a breakpoint right here. We have it here at the UI scene class. This is the button, the rectangle that we have. And now let's just see what it does. Calling in here, let's go in. So animate to fill. Okay, what's middle? Middle is something. Percent is 0.5. Great. This dot width, 300 times percent. Scenes dot create. Duration. Okay. It seems like it should have worked. Let's see. Let's just go here. Okay. On update is not getting called. Let's go to health bar. Maybe we, nope, that's spelled correctly. Scenes.create. Ah, I think I meant add. Okay, it's on breakpoint here. Let's try it again. There we go. Yes. So in Tweens, if you create it, it does not automatically add and play it, so we're using tweens.add. sometimes I make this error. It happens. Okay, it happens in timelines too. If you looked at our 3 card flips video, you can remember to play your timelines after you create them. Okay, so here it is. You saw that worked. If we do it again, nothing happens because we already add half. So cool, that's good. Now here, let's take a look at our home scene. We need to tell the iPet controller to play and to feed. So in home scene, if you remember, we briefly looked at this. Let me move myself. That we're passing in this data object here with a controller property, which is set to this being the home scene, which implements iPet controller, so we can access these 3 methods that we want. Let's go back here, and in create, we can pass in any data. And now let's just type this as controller iPet controller. Now VS Code auto imported that for me over here. If it didn't do that for you, you can just import this iPet controller interface. So we have that here, and let's see. Okay, so we can do const pet controller gets data.pet controller. Data.controller, right. Okay, so that's our pet controller coming out of data that we passed in from the home scene when we launched the UI scene. Now we have pet controller, and so from here, let's go play with the pet. So pet controller dot play. Great. So that should be right. So now after you do play, pet controller dot get energy. You want to know how much energy they have left. So let's go with energy. So now I'm just going to assume that maximum energy is 100. You could probably add a different interface to pet controller to give you the energy as a percentage. That may be better. For simplicity here, we're just going to assume that max energy is always 100. So to get a percent, we divide energy by max energy, which is 100. And so let's try this out. Now if we press play, this should be -10. The default, if we go here, right, this is optional. So if you pass in nothing, what happens in the home scene is defaults it to 10. So we're going to be subtracting 10 energy points. -10, and you see our guy jumped, -10 again. All right, cool. So now let's actually do, let's do pet controller dot feed, and we're going to feed it 5. And then we're going to do the same thing here. We'll just copy this. We're doing the same thing. For simplicity, we're just copying it. You could probably avoid having to copy, but there's really only 2 places it's happening. So for now, this is probably okay. Okay, so -10, -10. Now we're going to feed, and the bar goes up, feed. So you can adjust this. We're feeding, let's say the bar grows twice as fast as when it plays. So play, and then feed. Doesn't really feel that much faster, I guess maybe because, oh, no. That's an error. I should look at what I'm doing. Here, 500. Let's try that again. Play, and then feed. It's a little bit faster, I think you can sort of see. Let's make it even faster. 250, so a quarter of 1 second. So play, now feed. Yep, you see that's faster. So you can play with these values, the duration, the ease values, in our animate to fill method here in our health bar class. So that is a animated health bar or energy bar, any sort of meter you want to put in your UI. Now in this example, of course, we are using a controller class or a controller style class. Oftentimes when you hear about control classes, they're accompanied by models and views, which we technically do have, but does not look like the MVC or model view controller pattern you may see discussed for web applications. But conceptually, that stuff is actually all here in a game as well. So we have this health bar class. You give it these views, the left cap, middle, right cap. The models in our case is sort of associated with their views. like the width of the middle bar, but we also of course have the fill, which is a piece of data that describes how much this bar should grow and shrink, or how big it should be. But nonetheless, we have this class. We're not extended from phasers display classes, so this is a much lighter class. And we're using this interface in TypeScript so that we can code to an interface and not to a concrete implementation, meaning that when you do want to refactor this scene class, you can move this stuff out, organize your code a little bit better, and not have to change in the UI scene. The type we're expecting here will always be iPad controller, no matter how you want to refactor your code elsewhere. So that's this example, animated health bar in TypeScript in Phaser 3. Now, if you want to see more Phaser 3 TypeScript examples, again, go to examples.arcade.co, hit this TypeScript Phaser image here. And we've got, I think, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 groups already. These groups are completed, at least based on what exists on Phaser's official example site. You can look at these. These are all the actions. You can see the code, adjust the code, and then run it, and you'll see the changes live in your browser. And this is the Phaser version that this example is running against. And then if you want to look at other files, like the main JS file, oops. Try that again. The main JS file, you can. So all these examples are set up into multiple modules so that it more closely resembles your actual project that you're working on. Of course, we modeled it after our Phaser 3 TypeScript template, our Phaser 3 parcel TypeScript template. So that's how this is modeled. But that should be close to most other project setups that you're using. Index as well, but you cannot modify this one. Anyway, so that's the examples, and this was the animated health bar. If you enjoyed this video, do hit like and subscribe for more videos on Phaser 3 game development with JavaScript and TypeScript.